talk about the NFL just in brief. Give me like a 30-second kind of recap of the NFL season this year. What did you think about the season overall? I think there's highlight seasons that we have, and I think there's kind of seasons that kind of go under the radar. What did you think about the season overall this year?
Interesting year. I mean, I think in terms of like meta narrative stuff, I think there's been this idea that the AFC was significantly better than the NFC for many years. And I feel like that was not the case this year. I feel like the NFC was probably largely better than the AFC.
Yep.
Outside of a couple teams. Like I feel like most of the strength was actually in the NFC, which is an interesting kind of shift from what we've seen. So yeah, I thought that was good. I mean, I thought there was some interesting storylines. Like obviously we'll get into the Lions, but like the whole NFC North, Lions Vikings coming down to the last week of the season, what was it, 15 win or 14 win 15. Team going on the road.
Yes. Yeah. So 15
win going on the road and losing. So, I mean, hey, but like the first ever team with that many wins to go on the road, and people were talking about like changing the playoffs and that sort of thing. And even the Packers like winning 11 games or whatever they won. So just how stacked that was, and then how weak the NFC West was. The Cowboys collapsing again. There was a lot of interesting narratives. The NFC South just being so terrible. Like it's funny that like the NFC South and the AFC South are both divisions that I've kind of thought like, oh hey, like second year of Anthony Richardson, like CJ Stroud coming back, like Titans, Will Levis, maybe there's some improvement there. Like, okay, Trevor Lawrence, like Jags, all right, they were good a couple of years ago, right? Maybe and then that whole division was so terrible.
Crap.
And then the NFC South, again, I was like, all right, Atlanta, like, man, they got like a ridiculous amount of offensive weapons, and like maybe, their defense will do well enough, and you got, you're bringing Kirk Cousins, and then, the Bucks should be good. The Saints should be like pretty solid. And then, who knows, Bryce Young and the Panthers, maybe they can do something. And like when all was said and done, the Panthers might have been the best team in that division at the end of the year.
Yep.
Like I know the Bucks made the playoffs, but like in terms of how the teams were playing at the end of the season, honestly, I think it was the Panthers that were probably the best team.
I agree.
So like just kind of wild in terms of how some of these divisions went, that, it's not what I expected. Again, who knows what'll happen, but I really thought the AFC South would have been in contention for maybe one of the better divisions in the NFL. Like they were argued, like those two were probably the two worst divisions in the NFL, which is like very interesting to me.
We call that pooping the bed. Like that, both of those divisions just pooped the bed, just straight up.
The NFC North also pooped the bed, but just in a different way, because top three teams make the playoffs, the winningest division, like people are talking about it as the best division in the history of the NFL, and then all three teams lose their first game in the playoffs and are out. So
well, it's a good segue. Let's talk about our beloved Lions here. It was a rough season. It was a good season to start, and then Hutch went down, and I honestly that felt like, oh no, when Hutch went down. And he didn't just go down, he went down hard. Like it was gruesome to watch.
Broken leg. It was rough. I mean, but they still won 15 games is the thing, right? Like even with all the defensive injuries, and like Hutch went down in week 5 or week 6 against the Cowboys, and then they still ended up winning 15 games. So it's like, yeah, and certainly pointing to all of the defensive injuries overall certainly had an impact, but they still won 15 games even with however many guys going on IR on defense, like 13 guys or whatever it was.
Yes, I would just like to submit to you the teams that after week 5, so it was preseason 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So after week 5, they play the Vikings, good team. Titans, terrible team. Packers, okay. Texans, not that good. Jaguars, Colts, Bears, Packers, okay. Bills, yes, you're good. Bears, 49ers, they were bad this year. And then the Vikings. So I think if they would have played teams that are above average teams instead of below average teams, I don't think they would have won 15 games. They might have won 12 or 10, but I don't think they would have had a 15-win season, because I think they overperformed a little bit because of all of those injuries. Now, I'm not gonna blame. This is not like a. I hate it when people are like, well, if we would have been healthier, or if the refs would have called this, like it's ifs and buts or candy and nuts type of thing. Like you can't. You've got to play with what you got to play. I don't understand why the Lions didn't get some backfill around the trade deadline. I don't understand why they didn't push for Miles Garrett, somebody that could have, I understand, a Miles Garrett type player to just fill in that gigantic hole there. I understand, but like,
there's not many Miles Garrett type.
Okay, but you know what I mean. Like there is somebody that is not on Miles Garrett level. Miles Garrett at that point was already sending up smoke signals, like, "Yo, get me out of here." So
yeah, we can talk about the Miles Garrett thing because obviously there's a lot of conversation now about that. My take on it is Brad Holmes has done very well in the draft.
Yes.
Here's my overall take on the Lions. We'll just do it now.
Okay.
The Lions have a problem. It's a good problem to have, is that they have drafted exceedingly well since basically 2021. And now they've built over a few years, which is great. And it's awesome to have all these really exciting, exceptional young players. The problem they have over the next couple of years now, though, is you have to pay these guys.
Yep. Within 5 years.
Well, within 5 years, if they're first round picks, if they're not first round picks, within 4 years, and they've hit on a lot of guys outside of the first round.
It's true.
So the Lions are in a bit of a tough situation. And like I keep seeing their cap, how much cap space they have next year referenced, and they have a lot next year. But in 2026 is really when, like, that's when the Jared Goff contract really hits.
Yep.
For like the 50+ million. I think that's when the St. Brown contract like really gets like heavy.
21 to 25. Yeah. 26.
Yeah. Like goes up. And then, so in terms of decision making, right? So here's where the Lions are at. So like this season, they have Levi Onwuzurike.
Mm-hmm.
They have to make a decision about Kevin Zeitler. Mm-hmm. They have to make a decision about Carlton Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Zeitler won't command a lot. Carlton Davis potentially will, although the guy has been injured a lot. So it's hard to say how much he's going to get. Onwuzurike will be fairly expensive just because he's shown to be a solid defensive line player.
Yes.
But Kirby Joseph was an all-pro this year. Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch were were the number one safety tandem in the league this year.
Yeah, 100%.
They were both top 5 at that position by most metrics and by most evaluations I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So like to have 2 guys at the top 5 of their position is pretty wild. And then Kirby Joseph is entering the last year of his deal. They've shown a willingness to extend guys they want to keep. So you have some cap space, but the top safeties in the league, which Joseph has shown himself to be, they make like $20 million a year. Are you going to pay Kirby Joseph $20 million a year? Because then next year you have Brian Branch you have to extend or consider extending. He's also a top 5 safety in the league. Are you going to pay him $20 million a year as well? Can you afford to pay both your safeties $20 million? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Then next year, along with Branch, that's the 23 draft. So that's Gibbs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Gibbs was a first round pick. So they have the 5th year option.
That's Laporta.
Laporta, second round. So then that's a guy they're going to want to keep. So they don't have a 5th year option for him. Second round. Branch, they're not going to have a 5th year option. So they're probably going to have to extend him. And Jack Campbell, who probably won't be crazy expensive because even unless you're like Fred Warner, you don't get crazy money as a linebacker. But they have so many young guys that they're going to have to pay over the next couple of years of these guys they've drafted, that this conversation of like bringing in a guy like Miles Garrett, unless you're going to try to just go all in for 1 year and then not blow it up, but be pretty severely hampered after that. I don't agree with the strategy. I mean, obviously the idea of having Miles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson on the same defensive line is like intoxicating because that's like 2 of the top, maybe 3 pass rushers in the league on the same D line. Like sure. That's absurd. But like, as much as people pretend the cap is fake and there's all this cap wizardry you can do, eventually it catches up to you. And the Lions are just in that position. Like they have too many guys to pay. They have too many of their own guys. And you're going to have to give up multiple first round picks probably for Miles Garrett. And the Lions are going to need to hit on first round picks over the next couple of years to replace some of these guys that they're inevitably going to lose because they can't pay them, or just to have cheaper guys on the team because they're paying so many big contracts to so many guys. They're going to need a lot of good like guys on rookie deals.
Yeah.
So like, do I love the idea of bringing in Miles Garrett? Sure, I like it. Do I think they should have swung bigger at the trade deadline? Yeah, I guess so. But like, if you want to go after a premier guy like a Miles Garrett, like a Max Crosby, someone like that, it's going to be multiple first round picks. And do I think the Lions can afford to give up multiple first round picks given what their next couple of years like in terms of salary and the reality of the position they're going to be in? No, I don't think they can. So
I will point you my only rebuttal. I agree with everything you're saying, especially about salary cap. I'm looking at numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're the 8th in the league in available cap space. So without the dead money here, they're at 46 mil for 2025 that they can throw around. That's with everybody on their deals right now. That's all the expiring. That's all the everything there. I love the wins against replacement here. Who cares about that in football? It's not baseball. Just go out and win all your games. The one thing, where did I put the all-time draft history? Okay, here we go. This is not a strong draft. By all accounts, the 2025, was that what we're in? 25? Yes. The 2025 draft is not a strong draft outside of a couple of quarterbacks. Next year will be. So, and because you can kind of see some of the stuff coming out, especially like in the Colorado, like the next year is going to be the year that really NIL has had a chance to like level the playing field. That's going to be next year. It's yes, we're seeing it a little bit now, but by and large, everybody's saying 2026 is the year. Cool. I can go with that. The reason I was not, okay, I'm going to use Miles Garrett as the example, but somebody that you can slot in there. Yes, it's big and sexy and splashy, and it says you mean business. And as a Lions fan, like, we're in this weirdly spoiled position over the last 3 years, really, but 2 years, where we can actually talk about like, yo, Super Bowl. This is the first time I can remember ever in my lifetime. I'm 41 years old. I've never heard Super Bowl and Lions mentioned in the same sentence ever. And it's like, it's a really weird, intoxicating thing. And so like, if this is all we get, cool. We had a cool moment. The two things I'm going to go back to are we lost both our offensive and defensive coordinators. And I know, like, yes, next man up, there's a system, yada, yada, yada. That's fine. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to be bumpy. But the reason you get a big, sexy player in there is because of, A, the salary cap space. You use it up for a year because you got it. You use it up for a year. All this other stuff you can figure out next year when all of these 2023 expiring contracts, 2022, contracts start coming up for renewal or expiration or whatever you're going to do. You say, hey, we're going, like, it's what the Rams did, right? You say, we're going all in. The Rams won a Super Bowl. They went all in. They won that Super Bowl, and they're kind of coasting on it right now. That's fine. Just give me one, man. Just as a Lions fan, I don't want a freaking dynasty. I don't really care. Just give me one right now. Win, and then we will let the draft kind of figure it out. Even if we do the same thing that kind of the Patriots did for a little bit, where they would, and I'm not saying, the Patriots had dynasty, so catch me where I'm going here. They won 3 Super Bowls, and then there was 10 years where they didn't win another Super Bowl, but they consistently were getting to AFC Championship over and over and over and over and over. Yes, they would lose. Sometimes they got to the Super Bowl with who did they face? They faced the Giants. That was the 17-0 season, and then the catch on the helmet. Cool, love that. They got to another Super Bowl and they won it, and then they got to another one and lost the Eagles. Like, they're doing this thing. What they did is they got so good at, they'd get somebody sexy. Randy Moss, slot him in there. Cool. We'll pay him for like 2 years and then we'll shuttle him out of here, because behind that, we're drafting well to kind of put somebody in place. That's all you need on defense right now, because the offense, like, frickin' was amazing. And I went back and looked at that Washington game. If they would have had somebody of Hutch's or Miles Garrett's, or somebody, again, Miles Garrett, but somebody sitting in that center spot, they would have not been run all over. That game would have been a completely different game, because if you look at what actually happened in that Washington game, I was just looking at where the heck is it?
Yeah, I mean, in the Washington game, the offense turned the ball over 5 times though. So like,
sure,
yeah,
but
defense, you can say the defense didn't play great, but like, it's hard for any defense to play particularly well when your offense turns the ball over 5 times. Like,
no, I get that, but I think there was and again, ifs and buts, but like Jaden Daniels ran all over them, dude. Like he was lighting them up in the center of the field because they had nothing in the center of the field. So I don't know, that's like,
sure.
I understand where you're coming from. I agree with you. Like, it's a good problem to have right now. They essentially have like next year to figure all this out, right? Like they have $50 million. I mean, maybe
they also, I guess, but they still haven't extended Hutch yet. Like, which they've shown guys that they're gonna extend. This is his first year where he's extension eligible,
right?
Like, and they've shown, generally speaking, if they want to keep a guy, they will extend him as soon as they can to save money long term. Because the longer you wait to extend a guy, the more you pay, because the price just keeps going up and up and up.
Right.
So like, and maybe Hutch's camp, maybe they don't want, because he was injured most of the season, maybe they would offer him a little less. I don't think it'd be that much less, but like, because I think he's been pretty durable overall and his injury was kind of a fluky sort of thing. But maybe his camp says like, okay, we'll play next season. We were like on our way to a defensive player of the year type season this year. We'll anticipate he's going to do that again. So maybe you can push it off another year, but like, you know, if they extend Hutch, that's a good chunk of that, whatever cap space they have gone. If they extend Joseph, that's a good chunk of that cap space gone. What about Jameson Williams? Are you going to extend him?
Yeah,
like
good
he's
call.
2022.
Yep.
Like they have, and that's like not thinking about Carlton Davis or Zeitler or, you know, some of these other guys that whose contracts are up that they have to make decisions about. So like it's fine to say they have 50 whatever million in cap space. They don't really. Like there's a lot of decisions they have to make. There's a lot of guys they're going to potentially have to pay even this season. That, you know, will they have some cap space next season? Yes, they will. Will they have enough cap space for a guy like Miles Garrett? Maybe they can make it work for a year, but are you going to trade 2 first-round picks for Miles Garrett for 1 year? Because you're not going to be able to pay him after next year.
Yeah, it's true.
You're going to have to get rid of like a few other guys to pay him, which that's not what the Lions have generally done. This regime has been, we're going to draft, we're going to develop, and we're going to pay our guys that we drafted. Yep. That's been what they do. Like not bringing in guys on huge deals. Like again, so like, would I love it if they got Miles Garrett? I would love it if they got Miles Garrett. Do I want them to give up 2 first-round picks for a guy they're essentially, as far as I can see, only going to have for 1 season? No.
Sure.
I don't.
Sure. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. You have to understand.
Now, if they win the Super Bowl that season, do I feel differently? I don't know.
Worth it. 100% is worth it.
Well, that's the question, right? But like, that hasn't been the way this regime has seemingly gone about things. They could always have a change. Like maybe they could be like, okay, we're just going to do it. Like these contracts are going to hit. We're going to take a big swing. We're going to go all in. And, you know, who knows, maybe it's a first-round pick and like multiple seconds or thirds or something. And we save a first-round pick in 2026 or something.
Right.
Who knows, maybe they could get away with it. And like, we're going to pay him for 1 year. And then after that, we're going to be in real cap trouble. But, you know, we'll figure it out. We'll draft well, whatever. You know, if they do it, I won't be mad about it. But I think they will be sacrificing the future for the present. And you never know what can happen. Like, I think years like this season the Lions had don't usually happen. And I mean, in terms of the injury, like luck that they had, like that's not that common. And I think being competitive every year and being a team that's threatening for the NFC every year, which is I think what they're capable of, I will take over going in on one season. Because if you don't get it, now the opposite is you're the Steelers who make the playoffs every year but do nothing every year for like a decade. Like a decade. And no hate to the Steelers, but like they're a team that like they do well enough to make the playoffs every year. They don't really do anything in the playoffs. They get bounced typically in their first game. And I know the Lions got bounced in their first game this year, so I'm not throwing stones in a glass house, but like but you know, that's the kind of like consistency you don't really want. Like you want to be, we're in the NFC Championship game, we're in the Super Bowl, whatever, or we're bad and we get a good pick. Like that's kind of what you want, right? To be like middling good every year isn't really what you want. But I think this team, with how well they've drafted and the type of guys they've brought in, like Carlton Davis was a great guy to bring in. Amik Robertson, I think, was a great guy to bring in. Zeitler was a great pickup. DJ Reader was a great pickup. Like, they've shown that they're not going to break the bank on free agents, but they're going to draft well. They're going to bring in good guys. And barring like the catastrophe that was our defensive injuries this year, I don't know if we go there. Like, if the offense plays that bad in that Washington game, maybe nothing can save them. But like, if we have a healthy team, and one thing to point out about the Chiefs and the Eagles is both those teams are relatively healthy.
True. Very true.
That made the Super Bowl. Now, the Chiefs had some injuries. I know Hollywood Brown missed time. I know they had some guys out, especially on offense. But their defense, as far as I'm aware, was largely healthy. And the Eagles, outside of, I think, Brandon Graham, who went down, was also largely healthy on both sides of the ball. And it kind of shows you, like, if you can be healthy for the season, you can, you have a much better chance of getting there, obviously. Anyway, But my point is simply that I would rather see them be competitive every year, assuming that competitive is threatening a Super Bowl every year, rather than like we're really going to try to improve our chances for 1 year. But if we don't get it, then like we're kind of boned for like 3 or 4 years while we dig ourselves out of cap purgatory.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We need to close up shop here. I wanted to point to one thing before we leave that really kind of got me as Lions faithful. The career passing leader for the Lions is Matthew Stafford, of course, with 45,000 yards. And that's that's 11 years. He was there for 11 years. Jared Goff is already, after 3 seasons, at 16,000 yards, almost 17,000 yards, which isn't saying a lot, but he's now second for the Lions. So like we're living in rarefied air right now with Jared Goff. Say what you will about him. He's not the best quarterback ever, but right now he fits exactly what the Lions want to do. 3-step drop, get it out of there as quick as possible to one of your fast receivers, and if there's nobody there, dump it off to one of your amazing running backs. Boom. That's perfect. That's exactly what you need right now. They are using him so well. He needs to have a little bit more confidence because, man, that Washington game, he just was shook. For whatever reason, he was shook. And it was...
Well, my take on that is like he threw the pick 6 early. He got rocked on the pick 6.
Yes, he did.
And I think he was just never... I think he never shook it off. Like, he got evaluated for concussion. I guess he cleared. But like, I just getting rocked on that pick 6, I just think he was never the same. He wasn't the same for the rest of that game. And I think he was just off.
Yep.
And it was like the Houston game. Like, unfortunately, like, outside of him just playing poorly, like in that Houston game, just, a couple errant throws here or there. And then all of a sudden you're turning the ball over 5 times. And the Houston game, they got away with it. But Washington didn't. And we could have a whole conversation about Washington because I think they really overachieved this year. No disrespect to them. But
Washington was fun though, dude.
Oh, of course they were. And Jaden Daniels is a great story. So like, again, no hate to the Commanders, but like,
no,
I think they really overachieved. I think they got very lucky against Tampa, who kind of imploded on offense, and then against the Lions, who also imploded on offense.
Yes.
And credit to their defense for playing well, and credit to Daniels, and like credit them as a team. But like, I think they got extraordinarily lucky in terms of like that the teams they were playing against in the playoffs just kind of imploded.
Yep.
But yeah, they're absolutely very fun, and it was a tough season for the Lions. I mean, I was stoked. I mean, I think everyone was like pretty hyped. It seemed kind of that like team of destiny type of year. Like they've had so many injuries, all this stuff, like we're overcoming it, whatever. We have a home game, like that huge game against Minnesota. You win that, and it's like, okay, we're the 1 seed. Like we were fighting for it all year. They
didn't just win; they freaking dominated in that Minnesota game, man. That was awesome.
Minnesota with like the banged up defense, and then to just come out and like just absolutely get like implode on offense.
Yep, just a wet fart.
Yeah, just get embarrassed at home by the Commanders. Like, oh man.
Well, looking forward to next season. Is it football time already? No, unfortunately, we got to get through
off-season time, man. All the off-season. You ready? You ready for some mock drafts, my friend? We're all about mock draft season.
Combine season. Maybe we can do a combine special. Yeah,
sure, combine,
hand size and 40s.
Mock draft. Sure, arm length. Let's get into it.
Where do you think Dion's kid's going? It's gonna be great.
I wouldn't want him. That's for sure.
No, I'm good. Let him go to New York.
Not because of him as a player, but because you're gonna have to deal with Dion constantly being involved if you draft him. And no, thank you.
Yeah, no. Let him go to New York. New York media can take care of that. All right, we need to get out of here. This has been a long episode. We might end up separating this into two episodes because this Lions talk has been some of the most fun I've had on the Roundtable. But thank you so much for listening to the Roundtable, for sticking through with us. For Templar 10 over there, I'm Chino Mage. We'll talk to you later. Bye.